want to first welcome all guests for the first panel of the Baghdad Dialogue. I think, as we saw in the last video, it was about a 5-minute recap of the last 20 years. And this country's sure been through a lot. And I think it's quite amazing and a testament to where Iraq is today, that despite all that violence and chaos, that we're beginning this conference with a panel on climate change. I think that tells us that, we're able to put some things behind us and focus on more important things that face us today. And so, thank you to the panel for attending. And my first question is to you, Mr. Ambassador فريد. The Global Environment Outlook, number 6, by the UN Environment. It's a 745-page document from 2019, and it's cited by the former Iraqi president saying Iraq is the 5th most vulnerable country to climate change. I've gone through this document myself, and I have to be honest, I did not find the statistic anywhere. But having lived in Iraq, I know we're vulnerable to climate change. So I was hoping that you can set the scene for us on how vulnerable Iraq is to climate change.
Is this working? Okay. Full disclosure, I have not read the document. But I don't have to read it to know that we are concerned about climate change, and we should be. In fact, most of the discussions about Iraq talk about issues of governance and good governance. But there are other aspects of the world that we have to pay more attention to, because these are evolutions that are cumulative and that will reach a point that will make Iraq unsustainable as a country if we do not deal with them properly. I'll mention 3 factors. Sorry? I'll mention 3 factors. The first is demography. We don't pay enough attention to it. We are not 40 million. By 2030, we will be 50 million. When I was growing up, Iraq was 7 million people. At the time, we were very proud that we could export agriculture products and that the funding of the Iraqi state come from taxes on agricultural exports. But with 7 million inhabitants, you could export. Could you do that with 50? I'm not sure. This is something that needs to be looked at. The other thing is, of course, water scarcity. So water input into Iraq from neighboring countries was much greater than what it is right now. We all know that. These are decisions that impact all downstream countries. Iraq is not the only one in this situation. Egypt is another. You see that also in the United States with the conflicts between California and Colorado and other places. This is a critical issue that will need to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed by not only trying to impact and influence upstream countries, but also to manage our own management of water much better. And this is one of the things we also need to look at. We do not manage our water resources well. And the third thing, of course, is climate change. And this is something that has been ongoing. I first heard about it in college in the late 70s. And in fact, one of the reasons why I started working on energy. And then I was fortunate enough, and actually practically 27 years ago, yesterday, to start working for the Climate Change Secretariat. So right now we attended a few months ago the 27th Conference of the Parties of the Climate Change Dimension. We're preparing to attend the 28th. I attended the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th in 96, 97, 98. So I've been aware of this issue for quite a while. And the problem for me is that Iraq was absent. There is a worldwide effort that seeks to address climate change with the help of international organizations like the World Bank. But Iraq for a long time was absent, and I've always wanted to know why, and this is a small parenthesis, but I'd like to tell you why. The first large-scale attention to environmental issues was carried out in 1992 at the Earth Summit. And it was the largest international conference with huge international participation by NGOs. And one of the NGOs participating was the Iraqi Human Rights Organization, that had a stand that showcased the excesses of the former regime, and it was seen by Tariq Aziz. And I think that's one of the reasons why anything that came from this environment was stopped. Later on, in the late 1990s, an Algerian official working for the Convention to Combat Desertification sent a letter to the Iraqi Foreign Ministry telling them, you should join this convention. It only has benefits for you. It was raised to the Foreign Ministry. The Foreign Ministry sent it to the Cabinet. Cabinet approved it. But the final decision in Reading, signed Saddam Hussein, was there is no desertification in Iraq. So there's been a total neglect of this issue by the former regime. When things changed, okay, we pushed to join. In fact, the adhesion to the Climate Change Convention was put in 2006 at the time of the Iraq Compact, and we adhered in 2009, 17 years after our neighboring countries. Now, on climate change, there are two aspects of the work that needs to be done. Climate change is happening. We know that. We need to do two things. One is to work on resilience. In other words, we have to prepare our country to withstand additional heat waves, water scarcity, things like that. And this cannot be done without revising and rebuilding the Iraqi countryside with sustainable and resilient villages. This is being done. We can learn from other countries like Australia, like Morocco. And then we also need, and it makes complete sense to do this, we need to work on the other aspect, which is mitigation. And the World Bank has done quite a lot to tell us what to do. We, for example, as an oil-producing country, still flare huge amounts of gas, while at the same time importing gas to create oil. Much has changed in the last couple of years. There is great focus on what needs to be done. The oil ministry, the Ministry of Electricity are focusing on sustainable and renewable energies, and I think this should be continued and encouraged.